Hi everyone, my name is Jesse Lawrence and this is my tinnitus story. Just to recap, and for any people who are researching tinnitus, this is predominantly an OCD channel, but I do intend to do some tinnitus videos too, amongst other things. I'm kind of branching out a little bit. So for the tinnitus guys who are watching this, you may want to subscribe, you may not want to subscribe, but this is predominantly an OCD channel. Anyway, just a brief overview of my past. I've suffered with OCD from a young kid. It came on in stages when I was 19, 20, and then again when I was 34, 35, where I developed intrusive thoughts on a mass level. Along with rumination and living in a state that was so surreal and so clouded for many years, you know. And that's how I actually lived life in this. It was like looking through binoculars the wrong way. Anyway, on the 15th of October 2013, it was 2 years after my mother had died, my beloved mother, okay? And a couple of buddies of mine, relatives actually, offered me to go to a gig in Pontardawe, which is on the outskirts of Swansea. And for anyone that doesn't know, I'm Welsh. I was born and raised in Wales. And no, it's not in fucking England before you start, okay? And anyway, I went to this gig in Pontardawe. But there's something a bit eerie and a bit creepy about that whole day before I went to this gig. This might be worth listening to. I was laying on my bed, okay, in my bedroom. And this was about like 4 o'clock, 4 p.m., 5 p.m. And the gig was at like about 8 o'clock. And I was laying on the bed and I just become very shallow in my breathing and I felt as if I was being buried alive. Okay? I even had the image in my head of being buried alive. Almost like I was underground and, you know, I was stuck. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. It was horrible. And I was like that for several minutes. I was breathing really hard, you know. But after I come out of that, because it was kind of like an altered state, after I come out of that, I had this strong feeling not to go to this gig. Okay? It was a very loud type of rock concert. And I was so ruled at the time by my compulsions, and my compulsions were keeping me home. You know, I'd lost most of my friends, most of my family. There'd been a big rift within my family, and they'd sort of the two sides kind of separated. I chose to stay friends with both sides, and therefore I got ostracized. And I was living life alone. My outside life had just crumbled like ashes. And I was in the house constantly. And I felt like a real bore. You know, the OCD was keeping me home all the time. So I decided, against my better judgment, not to listen to my intuition. And I went to this gig. And I can remember driving up there. And I was really nervous. There was something in me that was telling me not to go to this gig. So I go into the art centre or wherever it was, wherever the gig was happening. And I bought my ticket and I went in, and I stood a little too close to the speaker. And I didn't really think anything of it. The music actually didn't seem that loud. It was loud, but it wasn't unbearably loud. And the gig lasted, an hour and a half. And I came out of the gig, and the singer's daughter was there selling, and he's quite a famous guy. And she was selling all the records and the CDs and what have you. And I bought something off her, but the ringing in my ears was absolutely incredible. And if anyone's ever come out of a nightclub or, any loud place, you know what I'm talking about. It wasn't the first time it happened to me, but there was something different about this. And I went home. I went home. The 15th of October, 2013. And I went out, I think it was a day later, to the local pub by me. And people were talking and I couldn't hear them. I just couldn't hear them. I could hear bits of what they were saying. But eventually that deafness wore off. It wore off slowly, day by day. And I can remember going to bed thinking, the deafness is wearing off. The ringing seems to be wearing off. I'll be fine. And I got up the next day, and in my ear was like, ooh, and in both ears, and still is now. As I'm talking to the camera, I can still hear it, except that the pitch in this ear is different from the pitch in this one. They're slightly different. And I can remember going into the bathroom, and there was this other dude that I'd befriended on Facebook who actually had the same name as me. And I remember Facebooking that I had this ringing, and he said, "Oh my God, Jesse, oh my God." He said, a buddy of mine had this ringing, and it stayed with him for life. It's driven him mad. And it's like that planted a seed in my head. And the days rolled on, and this thing would not go away. And this guy's words come back to haunt me. I almost thought he'd planted the suggestion in me, so to speak. But it was noise-induced tinnitus. And I walked the streets at night. All I could do is walk. And when I grieve, or when I'm angry, or when I need to clear my head, this is what I do. I always walk. And I just walked the streets at night. And I was a tortured soul. I was tortured anyway from OCD. But to have this on top, and I cried and cried and cried. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm a grown man. And just like that premonition I had, at least I think it was a premonition, where I was laying on my bed before the gig and I couldn't breathe. That's exactly how it felt. It was a situation I felt I couldn't get out of. And it was claustrophobic. I just couldn't get away from this noise. So in a way, that premonition come true. And I Googled, I researched, I watched YouTube video after YouTube video, and, nothing really helped other than to know other people have got it as well as me. And there was one video, though, I don't know if anyone have seen it. There was a guy on YouTube, I don't know if the video's still there, but he's got a video where he actually says, he more or less says, and I'm paraphrasing, don't listen to the mainstream. Tinnitus can be cured. And he had said, unless I'm remembering it wrong, He said it's something to do with your nervous system. And once you calm the nervous system down, the tinnitus will decrease. There may or may not be truth to that, but just the same as intrusive thoughts, unwanted intrusive thoughts, which is OCD, the more you resist them, the more you will keep them around and the worse they'll become. It's the law of reversed effect. It's paradoxical effort. And I found the same thing with tinnitus. The more you resist it, the more you push against it, the worse, in a way, you're magnifying it by pushing it away. You're magnifying it. But some of the coping strategies I used that white noise, that you can get. I'd put headphones on. Excuse me. And I'd put headphones on with that matches the pitch of your own tinnitus, and that seemed to help a little bit. But these things were only respite. They were only a brief, easing of the torture. And going to bed at night was terrible when you switch the light out and in your ears, and you have to go to sleep that way. It was a living hell. It was a living hell. And is one thing I can say about tinnitus is it builds strength of character. It really do, because you have to keep going on. You just have to keep going. And it was made worse by the loneliness I was going through. It was just me and my cat. My outside life I'd gone to nothing, and I was constantly alone with this noise. And I haven't heard silence in 2013, so that would be 9 years. 9 years. And it's weird. I used to look up, temper. Every now and again, I'd look up, I'd type into Google tinnitus cure. Is it a cure? I was so desperate to get rid of this sound. But the best thing you can do is habituate to it. That's the only advice I can give people, is to habituate. And in the end, you'll have no choice but to habituate to it, which means that, it'll still be there, but it'll be in the background, But there is help, apparently. I mean, I've dabbled with hypnosis, but hypnosis apparently can help with tinnitus. I'm just hoping and praying, not just for myself, but for people in general, all over the world, that they eventually find a cure. What amazes me is that it's 2022 and there's still no fucking cure for this condition. But that's my tinnitus story. But it's easy to know that we're all going through it together, and it's this hope, I believe, for the future. And I just feel sorry for people. I just really feel sorry for anyone that's going through this. I think people, sometimes when you get grouchy and you get, a lot of people don't understand what it is you're going through. They don't understand what it's like to never have the ability to hear silence like they can. That this thing is constantly with you, minute after minute, day after day. Because, I mean, some people are lucky in the sense that their tinnitus can come and go. But with my tinnitus, personally, it never stops. It's always there. Although an interesting thing happened over Christmas. Even though it was still there, I didn't pay it any attention at all, for whatever reason. And it was like as if it wasn't there. It was like as if it was gone. But that is when, you get to a place in a way where you just habituate to it. Anyway, I'm rambling, guys. I'm going on. And I just want you to know that if you need to talk in the comment section, if you suffer with tinnitus and you need to let off some steam, use the comment section for that. Anyway, take care, guys. Adios.